court is now back in session, and the floor is given to the defense team for Mr. Kyosong-Fon to resume the questioning. You may now proceed.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Witness, you explained before the break what you knew of the origins of the first skirmish with Regiment 111, with Regiment 1-1. How did you know about that? Were there any telegrams to explain the situation? Did you attend any meetings? Can you explain to the chamber how you came by that information at the time, since you were not in that Regiment 11?
The brigade number 2 has 4 regiments, 11, 12, 13, and 14. When there was a situation happening, the brigade would convene a meeting, and when there was a in conflict with the Vietnamese troops, the regiment 11 would report, would make the report. Then we would get the information.
D'accord. Et est-ce que...
Very well. And can you tell the chamber how frequently those kinds of information meetings were held? Were they held on a daily basis, or only when there was a particular issue or particular cause for concern?
Let me tell you, we were within the same structure, and the meetings would be convened on a regular basis, once in every 3 days, for example. And when there was a special situation, there would be a special meeting.
D'accord.
Very well. I would like us to now talk about another issue regarding your time at Takeo, a meeting held in 1977 with Tamok. My first question regarding Tamok is, when did you meet him for the first time?
I met Tamok very often, since he was the commander in the region, in the zone rather, and I at the time was part of the special battalion under the brigade, so I made a constant communication with my brigade. The meeting you mentioned was the first one, but I, as I said, met him very often. For example, about the arranging the forces to Svay Rieng. That happened. In fact, the arrange of forces was organized in late 1977, and I went to Svay Rieng in 1978.
D'accord.
Very well. You have anticipated my next question. Tamok was therefore involved in the organization of military forces in Svay Rieng and not only in the Svay Rieng. Is that the case?
The selection of forces was made at Takeo under the command of Tamok, but Tamok had to select forces in order to send those forces to Svay Rieng.
D'accord, je vais revenir.
Very well. I'll return to Sairing later. I would like to also continue to focus on Takeo. You said that you regularly saw Tamok, but you didn't answer the question, or perhaps I didn't understand your answer. When did you see him for the first time? Was it in 1975? Was it before 1975? When did you see him for the first time?
My first meeting with Tamok happened before 1975, before the attack of Phnom Penh. I met him for the first time. He made a plan with Sombat to attack into Phnom Penh. Again, I met him the first time before 1975.
D'accord.
Very well. As regards his character, I understood yesterday that you did indicate something. I would like to tell you what I heard. I don't know whether it corresponds to what you said. You said that Tamok was someone who didn't mince his words. Does that reflect your experience of his character?
I saw him and I recognized that he was very strict in his words. He was very straightforward when he spoke, and he did not use any other words when he made a speech.
Vous avez évoqué avec...
In answer to questions put to you by Council Kope, you referred to Chukrin. Chukrin appeared before this chamber, as you know, and this is what he said regarding Tamok for the hearing of the 23rd of April 2013, document E1/182.1, and the part that is relevant to me is slightly before 11 hours, 21 minutes and 16 seconds. This is what he stated. Would you like me to describe Tamok? Since he was my immediate superior, I know to what extent he was powerful. For instance, he used the following watchwords. Above Mok's head, all there is his hat. End of quote. Does it correspond to any memories you have of him? And did you hear such an expression, above Mok's head is nothing but his hat?
This phrase was usually used in an official dialogue, rather in an unofficial dialogue. Usually people said that above Mok's head there was only sky, and above Mok's head, above Mok's head there was a hat, and above his head there was sky, only sky.
Et savez-vous d'où est venue cette expression?
And do you know the origins of that expression? Why did he use that expression? What does it mean regarding Tamok's character and the manner in which he took his decisions, if you do know?
To my understanding, the expression was used when the one wanted to refer to his power. Above Mok's head there was his hat, and above his hat there was only sky. So no one could supervise him.
Je poursuis la citation.
I'll press on with the quotation of Shukrin at the hearing of the 23rd of April 2013. This is what he stated. When I left the southwest, where Tamok had issued orders, and when I arrived in the east, I observed that Tamok issued orders to all the commanders. I therefore understood that he was powerful. Everywhere you could see him giving instructions to the soldiers. He progressively acquired influence over all Khmer Rouge soldiers, both those of the southwest zone and the east zone. When I was in the west, I saw him, and when I was in the east zone, I saw him issuing orders. That is what I mean when I say that he was powerful. End of quote. From the answers you gave yesterday to Council Kopei's questions, I understand that you were not aspiring at the same time as Chukrin. So my question to you is whether you saw Tamok at any point in time when you were inspiring, and do you know whether he issued any orders to commanders during the time you spent aspiring?
When I went upon my arrival at Svay Rieng, Tamok was at Takao province. Upon my arrival there, Rand took the responsibility to order the troops, and above Rand was Son Sen, because Tamok was not there at Svay Rieng. Above Rand there was Son Sen, and under Ryan, the regiments or brigades would be responsible for the tasks. So the chain of command at Svay Rieng was under Son Sen and Ryan.
Je vais revenir à...
I will return to Svay Rieng in a while, but I would like us to wrap up things on Svay Rieng. So let us backtrack a little. You stated that you left in 1978 to go to Svay Rieng. I would like you to confirm a number of points that we have on record and shed some light on them. The first document in this regard is document E3/853, and the ERN in French is 00290267, and the ERN in English is 00185283, and the ERN in Khmer is 000-52825. In order for you to understand the context, it is a report sent to Ankara. This is the name mentioned on the document, and it says from the Southwest Zone, and it's dated the 3rd of June 1977. And this is what is stated in paragraph 1 of the paragraph I've just mentioned. The enemy's activities from outside. At the border, the enemy occasionally fired shells at our territory. And at the border between Kampot and Vietnam, they moved their people 3 kilometers inward into their land, and the phrase saying that thousands and thousands years lasting solidarity between Vietnam and Cambodia was written in both languages, Khmer and Vietnamese. In contrast, they used tractors to dig trenches at Wat Ko Chan Lo Pagoda, end of quote. I would like you to confirm whether, as part of the activities you engaged in the Southwest Zone at the time, do you recall June 1977 in particular? And do you recall whether in June 1977 or before that you saw tracks disseminated by Vietnamese troops? That is the first question. Did you hear of that? That would be my first question.
I was not aware of the leaflets. Perhaps there were leaflets close to the border of Cambodia. I have never seen, I did not see at the time leaflets at the place where I was stationed.
Est-ce que vous connaissez...
Did you know Ko Chan Lo Pagoda? And as part of meetings you attended, did you receive any information on trenches that were dug by the Vietnamese at that location? And if it wasn't at that location, that's the issue of digging of trenches, something that you received among the information that was provided to you?
Regarding digging trenches at the borders of Ta Cao and Cambodia, practically speaking, Cambodia and Vietnam had their respective trenches. Each country had already the trenches, and trenches made by Vietnam usually was built with concrete.
Et quand vous dites...
And when you say that the trenches were dug by the Vietnamese, does it mean that on the Cambodian side of the border, the trenches were different? And if they were different, can you describe the difference? What made you think they were different?
The Vietnam made the concrete trenches, and for Cambodia side, we made trenches from wood and mud. And in the rainy season, usually the trenches were broken. For Cambodian side, we had to build the trenches after the rainy season. And DK-75 weapon could only break, could not cause any destruction of the concrete trenches at the Vietnamese side, because the Vietnamese side, they built the concrete trenches.
Vous avez évoqué à plusieurs reprises.
You made mention on several occasions of the disappearance of forces on both the Cambodian and the Vietnamese sides, and you explained yesterday why you received instructions not to be the first to attack, because you didn't have the forces to do so. My question now would focus on 3 documents. And I'm speaking in general terms. These documents date back to the period prior to your arrival in Svay Rieng. But I would like to know whether you received any information in the course of the meetings you attended, either when you arrived at Svay Rieng or prior to your arrival at Svay Rieng. Before showing you these documents, my first question is as follows. You said that Tamok chose the forces that had to go to Svay Rieng. Did you have any briefing by Tamok, or did you receive any information on the situation you were going to encounter in Svay Rieng before you left for Takeo?
Usually, as a commander of the zone or a division, before they sent forces to a specific location, the situation at that specific location was briefed. We were informed that Vietnam had already penetrated close to Prasot, and we were told to be to be cautious. I, at the time, had not disembarked my truck yet, and some of our troops and soldiers had killed at the time. I was told when I was sent to Svay Rieng by Tamok that Vietnam had not yet penetrated close to Prasot, but in fact they had already arrived at Prasot. Vietnamese troops had penetrated deep into our territory. 3 trucks had been destroyed. We did not know the exact location. We did not know the location clearly at the time, and some of our soldiers had been killed and wounded.
Quand vous parlez de 3 de vos...
When you talk of 3 of your trucks, are you talking of convoys arriving in Svay Rieng from Takeo, or you're referring to something else?
There were 35 trucks in the convoy, in fact. And soldiers were from 4 regiments, totaling of 1,800 soldiers. 3 trucks were in the front. The 3 trucks transported soldiers from Takeo to Prasot to have those soldiers deployed at Prasot. But at the time, Vietnamese troops had already arrived at Prasot. And our soldier were at close to Prasot, and the trucks went very quickly to Prasot, and then encountered the Vietnamese troops.
D'accord.
Very well. You said that your meeting with Tamok was held in late 1977, and if I remember correctly, you left for Svay Rieng in July 1978. So between late 77 and July 1978, did you hold any other meetings with Tamok or others during which more up-to-date information was provided to you? That is information that was more up-to-date than the information you had in late 1977.
That meeting happened in late 1977, and the forces were sent in mid-1978. You may have a question why it took so much time to send the troops to that location, because we needed to arrange forces we needed to think of which of soldiers from which units or regiments had to be mobilized from, in order that we could send the forces to Svay Rieng. It took very much time to have those soldiers from different regiments. The meeting was convened in mid-1977, and those soldiers were sent to Svay Rieng in July, that is mid-1978, in May rather.
Dans ma traduction, j'ai eu...
In interpretation, I heard of a meeting convened in May 1977. Do you mean December 1977? In fact, did you say December 1977 in Khmer? Or can you at least clarify the month, please?
I cannot recall the exact month of 1977. What I can say is that the meeting was held in late 1977 in order to deploy troops to Svay Rieng, and the soldiers could only be sent to Svay Rieng in late May 1978. This is my clarification for you.
Indeed, Chun Ti, a witness who testified before you, explained that before he was mobilized again at the battlefront, he was in his unit that was in charge of farm work. So my question is, do you know if among the soldiers who were mobilized to go to Svay Rieng, if many of them had been demobilized before to go do farm work or construction work, or who had military duties before going to Svay Rieng? Can you give us an idea of the proportions here, the percentage?
Regarding the organization of the Intervention Brigade 221, we had to select forces from those previous named brigades, that is 210, 230, 250, and 270. So one regiment was selected from those brigades in order to form Intervention Brigade 221. For that reason, those forces who worked in a production unit were not assigned or selected, because only the fighting forces were recruited for that purpose.
D'accord.
Fine. This regards Brigade 221, but regarding the other brigades, do you know if there were people who were involved in production work before being sent to the battlefront? If you don't know, just tell us so.
I cannot grasp the situation, because the forces that were assigned to me were all fighting forces, and I did not have any forces who were from the production unit.
No problem. Now I would like to turn to a first document that I would like you to see. Knowing that once again, it's not so much the content of the document that interests me, but more the locations that are mentioned in this document. Since you said that fighting took place on both sides of the border. Sometimes the Vietnamese would penetrate, and sometimes the Cambodians would penetrate. So what I wanted to know, if you recognize the locations mentioned in this document when you arrived in Svay Rieng. Do these locations ring a bell? So the first document I would like to provide to the witness is document E3/946. French ERN 00332-727. English 00185-205. Khmer 000-21015. And with your leave, Mr. President, I would like this document to be given to the witness. In this document is a telegram dated 26 April 1978.
Yes, you may proceed.
Monsieur le témoin.
Witness, so you're being given a document, and I'm going to read paragraph 2 on the first page. This is a report that was sent regarding the situation at 26 April 1978, and several people were copied, Uncle Non, Uncle Van, and this is what is written. On top of the enemies in Pretonle, in the direction in Pretonle precisely, they attacked the clock bridge towards the house with the saw letter, and came by Pripромden by going through Prekok. End of quote. So my first question, corrects the interpreter. I know that in Brigade 221, of which you were part, you operated in different places in the area of Svay Rieng. So in July 1978, or afterwards, during the 2 months of your presence in Svay Rieng, do the towns of Pretonle and the Clock Bridge, and does the location of Pripромden ring a bell? Are these locations where you had to fight, or where fighting took place after April 1978?
I am not familiar with the names appeared in the document.
No problem. Now I would like to turn to another document in order to possibly avoid well, this is document E3/862, a second document. French ERN 008145597. Khmer 00021-019. English 00185-207. Mr. President, with your leave, can this document be given to the witness? This is a report on the situation in all sectors, in all areas in the first week of May 1978. So can this document be given to the witness, and then I'm going to put questions to him regarding the locations that are mentioned in this document.
Yes, you can proceed.
Witness, what I would like to focus on in this document is the first part that describes the situation of the national defense, knowing that once again that this is a document dated back to May 1978, so that's a little bit before you arrived in Svay Rieng. So before you arrived there, did you obtain any information on Sector 24 and on Sector 23?
ក្នុងឯក
I cannot grasp the situation mentioned in this document. If I know about it, I would tell you, but I don't.
D'accord. Et donc,
Fine. So now let me return back to the previous question, which is when you arrived in mid-1978, you had no information on the situation that you were going to find there. Even based on the information that was given to you at the meeting at the end of 1977, nobody sent you telegrams, reports before you arrived in Svaireng, is that correct?
Before I left, the upper echelon explained to me about the need for us to go there to provide our support. And that happened in mid-78 because our intervention unit needed to go to be based at Prosod district, to be in Cho village. So these two areas were our main directions, and then I deployed the troops in the said locations.
When you arrived in Svaireng, was it Ren who welcomed you?
When I arrived in Svaireng, yes, indeed, Ryan welcomed me, and he was with another person, and he briefed about the situation. And he was not even aware of the presence of the Vietnamese troops in Prosod, because by the time I arrived, 3 of my trucks were destroyed. Because the 3 staffs had left before the convoy, while I remained with the main convoy, and we planned to stop and deploy our troops in Prosod district, as well as some troops to be deployed in Cho village. But 3 of our trucks were destroyed. Indeed, I was briefed about the situation, but those people on the ground were not even aware of the presence of Vietnamese troops in the area. I left Takav at 5 o'clock, and some trucks would arrive early in Svaireng. We had to leave at the night during the night time, and that's why some trucks were destroyed. So allow me to say again, we were briefed by the upper echelon, and Ryan himself also briefed me about the situation, but he was not aware of the presence of the Vietnamese troops in the area.
So once you arrived in Svaireng, you said, as well as Chun Thi, that your brigade, 221, was a mobile brigade that was expected to provide relief to other brigades that needed it. So my question is, when you deployed your forces, did you meet with other brigades? And did Ren give you specific instructions based on the brigades that you had to support?
It is typical that when we were in the battlefield, the brigade commanders attended a meeting chaired by the division commander, and there were no many items on the agenda because due to the urgent situation, we were standing and talking. Brigade 340 would be sent to Cho and pursued, and that my brigade would go to lend support to that brigade 340, since they were assigned to be based at the pursuit and Chor areas. So we were briefed and we discussed about this plan before I deployed my troops.
So the instructions that were given to you by Ren was the idea in them to push the Vietnamese back, or was the idea to penetrate Vietnamese territory?
I testified yesterday that Vietnam was a bigger country with more army, more people, and more weapons. Our unit, though it was an intervention, was to contain them and not to make them advance quickly. We would not have the ability to push them back inside into their country. We were there only to contain them, but we could not even do that, because when we tried to contain them on the left side, then they advanced on the right side. They had more war experience than us, and also due to their superior firepower and soldiers, we could not push them back into their country. I never even had such a hope, and our hope was only to contain them.
Is this why yesterday, when the co-prosecutor read out to you an article from the Vietnamese press saying that your brigade in Brigade 340 had penetrated Vietnamese territory, you said that you were surprised, and you said that that did not correspond to what you had experienced?
Yes, that is correct. We did not have the ability to do that, to take Vietnamese territory. We did not have such ability at all. For me, I know clearly the forces of the Democratic Cambodia, which has emerged from the 5-year-long war with the colonial government, and our armed forces were not that strong yet. For that reason, we did not have any ability to invade or to grab any Vietnamese territory at all.
Now, I would like you to comment something that was dealt with yesterday a little bit. That is a statement from your former deputy, Sok Chin. This is document E3/428 in French ERN 00485-477, English 00374950, Khmer 00373485 onto the following page. You said yesterday, or you spoke yesterday about the fact that on your side you had captured no Vietnamese soldiers, and this is what Sok Chin says. Based on what I know, the Khmer Rouge Army never captured Vietnamese soldiers. However, the Vietnamese Army captured Khmer Rouge soldiers. In my unit, there were 20 soldiers probably who were captured by the Vietnamese soldiers. The reason the Khmer Rouge were not able to capture Vietnamese soldiers is when I arrived there, the Vietnamese Army had already reinforced its troops in a shoreway, and it had already laid an enormous quantity of mines in the river, which was an obstacle to the advance of the Khmer Rouge Army. End of quote. So my first question regarding this is, well, you said that you yourself were wounded. by a shell fired by a tank and by a mine, if I understood your testimony properly yesterday. So do you confirm what Chin is saying here? That is to say that the Vietnamese troops had laid mines in the rice fields. Is this something that you remember?
Yes, indeed. And why did I say that? Though I did not know for sure whether the mines were led by the Cambodian troops or the Vietnamese troops, I was wounded in my leg, and while I was being carried through the rice field, we stepped on a mine, and a person who was carrying me at the front died, and the person who was carrying me at the back got wounded, and I also was hit by a shrapnel from a mine on my head, though I did not know for sure who laid that mine in the rice field.
Your deputy, Sec Chin, speaks about mines that were laid by the Vietnamese. So aside from this incident, do you know if there were other incidents involving other brigades and involving mines elsewhere than where you were injured?
It is my understanding that during the course of war, Vietnamese troops or Cambodian troops, wherever they were based, they had to lay mines at night time. And that happens to both sides. When we were not familiar with the geographical location, we had to lay mines, 3 or 4 mines at the night time, and we would remove them in the next morning. And that's the art of war. We had to use all kinds of tactics and strategies. Sometimes those tactics or strategies were explained, sometimes they were not. But we had to use all the strategies in order to survive ourselves.
Well, speaking about strategy, I would like to seek clarification in relation to what you said yesterday. Yesterday morning at around 11:36, I understood that you said you had a meeting with Son Sen around Svay Rieng, and in the afternoon at around 1:44, I understood you were saying, at least in the French, that you had not seen Son Sen. So can you tell us if yes or no you met Son Sen in Svay Rieng? That's my first question. And based on your answer, I will continue with another question.
I attended a meeting with Son Sen in Svay Rieng, and also yesterday I spoke about the location of the meeting, that it was in Krao Ku. And I was asked many follow-up questions about the Krao Ku location, whether it was a military headquarters, and my response yesterday was that it was a logistics office, and it was also a mobile office used by Son Sen. When Son Sen left Phnom Penh to go there, he would have meetings with the commanders on the ground in that location for an hour or so before he left.
Do you know someone by the name of Kepok?
I only heard of his name, but I never met him because he was in the northwest zone.
With the leave of the President, I would like to provide the first page of the statement of witness T2CW 942. I cannot mention his name, but I would like, however, the witness to see the first page of the statement and to see if he knows this person, and then I will read out a segment of this person's statement so that the witness may comment.
Donc c'est le document.
So this is document. It is witness 2TCW 942, and it's statement E3/426, French ERN 00. Mr. President, with your leave, can I provide this document to the witness?
Yes, you may proceed.
Et donc dans la...
So, as the document is being given to you, let me give you the ERNs. French 00403-068. In English 00364071. And Khmer 00357492. Witness, I simply would like you to look at the name as it's underlined in orange in the document that was just provided to you. And do you know this person, without mentioning this person's name, because we must use a pseudonym for the moment. So does this name ring a bell? And did you see this person at the logistics office in Svay Rieng?
Yes, I know this person, and I saw him too.
Est-ce que vous l'avez vu?
So you saw him when you were in Svay Rieng, that is to say between mid-78 and the moment when you were evacuated to Phnom Penh after you were injured. Is that correct?
I saw him and got to know him after 1978.
D'accord, donc vous ne...
Fine. So you did not see him in Svay Rieng. Is that correct?
No, I did not see him in Svay Rieng. After 1979, I saw him, and even at present, I know him, and I even know where he lives.
D'accord, je voudrais...
Fine. So I'd like to read out an excerpt where he speaks about Cape Pok, and this might be at a different period from yours, but however, I would like to confront you with this passage. So he is speaking here about his stay in Svay Rieng, and this is what he says. Later on, Son Sen assigned me to the radio and logistics office in Svay Rieng at the end of 1977. In 1978, Son Sen was relocated from Svay Rieng to Sung's office when the Vietnamese arrived in the east in order to organize the eastern zone and to control the work in the east zone. Son Sen had two functions, in Svay Rieng and in Sung. And the command of the East Zone military operations and of all of the movements in the East were guaranteed by Son Sen and Cape Pok, end of quote. So in this segment, he does not specify when in 1978 or he is referring to, and he is speaking about Son Sen and Cape Pok as the people who were in charge of all of the divisions in the East. So my question is, before you arrived in Svay Rieng, did you hear about Cape Pok's involvement in the Eastern Zone forces?
In the East Zone, I only know Son Sen. As for Cape Pok, I only heard of him through the meetings that he was in charge of the northeast zone, that is Krajes, Teng Trang, Ratanakiri, and Mandolkiri. As for the east zone, there was only Son Sen. However, if there were any reorganization later on, I do not have that knowledge.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am done for the moment. I will have further questions, but I think that my time is up. And my colleague, Kong Samon, also says that he has no complementary questions, so we can stop here.
Thank you, Council. Mr. Im Pan, the Chamber is grateful of your testimony. Your testimony may contribute to the ascertainment of the truth in this case, and you are no longer required to be present in the courtroom, so you can return to your residence or wherever you wish to go to, and we wish you all the very best. And the Chamber is grateful to you, Mr. Mamretir. You may also rest. Court officer, please work with Visu to arrange for Mr. In Pan to his residence or where he wishes to return to. It is now convenient time for a lunch break. We stop for break now and resume at 1:30 this afternoon. And this afternoon, the Chamber will begin hearing testimony of a witness to TCW 1065. Security personnel are instructed to take Hyo Sampon to the waiting room downstairs and have him return to attend the proceedings this afternoon before 1:30. The court stands in recess.